Hi everyone, welcome to another day of 10 Days, 10 Lives. We have Anya here. Let me just go ahead and add her. Waiting for her to join in.
Hi.
Hi Anya, welcome to 10 Days, 10 Lives with Minnie Roo.
Thank you. Can you see me clearly? Am I
I,
audible?
I think we need to move a little up. Your head is kind of getting cut off at the nose.
Okay. My bad. Sorry. Is this better?
Perfect. The lighting is, yes, it's good. It's good. Yeah, I can see you. Yeah, so hi Anya. For those of you who have joined us, this is Anya Reddy, and she is a play therapist. She works a lot with kids, and I think this is a very unique. We're all talking about mental health and the importance of mental health, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and the issues that we all have to deal with ourselves, with our children. And I think this is, she comes with a great experience. So Anya, actually, I'm going to do something different here. I want you to kind of introduce yourself, tell us your experience. What is play therapy, and what is like? How did you get trained, and tell us what your journey was like.
Okay. Well, I'm actually a play therapy practitioner. I'm not
Okay.
actually a play therapist yet. I think that
Okay.
takes a lot more experience. My experience has really just been, being surrounded by a lot of issues that I noticed when we were growing up, with my peers during my childhood. And also now in my adulthood, I'm able to see a lot of childhood issues that are affecting adults now, their personalities now. And I
Yeah.
think it was just a natural tendency for me towards play therapy. I work using play therapy is a space where the child comes in and they are invited to do and say whatever it is that they want. Play is
Okay.
the language that we use because for a child to describe their thoughts and experiences using
Anya,
words.
can you speak a little bit loudly? The Vishwa, I mean, we can't hear you too clearly, so you can come a little bit closer, or yeah,
Is this better? Am I audible now?
yeah, it works. Everybody, can you hear Anya well? Can I just have a quick thumbs up?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So in play therapy, I use play as the child's natural language. So I use
Okay.
toys, music, art, drama, puppets, storytelling, movement, different mediums to help the child express themselves. So typically, you'll
Okay.
see a child recreate a scenario that has happened in their lives, maybe even using a sand tray and toys. So they'll
Okay.
build the scenario as it was, and then you'll notice the shift in their play, in the story they're building, and in their energies, because that's when they are reclaiming their power and they're expressing how they think it could have gone differently and how they would have liked for it to have gone differently. So that's where
Okay.
we start, and from
Yeah.
there, the child leads their process. Because I come from a school of thought where I am trained to believe that the client knows how to heal themselves, and my
Yeah.
job is to hold them and facilitate their own wisdom. The idea is
Yeah.
always you want a therapist as a short term crutch, and a
Yeah.
therapist is there to help you help yourself.
Correct, absolutely. And I think, you were explaining to me about how like kids, I mean, they obviously can't communicate as well as us. So they use play to kind of express themselves, and they use play as a medium to kind of talk, right? So, so how does a parent recognize anxiety in a child or any kind of, issue in a child, and how can we as parents identify these things?
Well, with regards to anxiety, it can be a tricky one because anxiety can manifest itself in, being withdrawn, in being aggressive, in being tearful, clingy, irritable. So all of these are secondary emotions. It's what we see on the surface. And my job as a therapist is to dig down and see what's causing these to arise. So
Okay.
typically, parents, teachers recognize, behavioral symptoms, and it's just to keep a watch out. Is your child behaving differently? Sometimes it can be because there was a traumatic event, or because there was a change in city or school or town, or there's some bereavement happening for the child, they've lost a loved one. So when it's scenarios like that that have happened, it's easier to recognize the difference in the child, and it's easier to understand where it's coming from. But
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know what's happening for the child. So you
Exactly.
just have to keep an eye out for when is the child behaving differently.
Okay. So once you figure out that, okay, there's something off and you probably as a mother are noticing a change in, either aggression or they're more reserved or any of these things, what does a parent do next? When do you kind of probably take it to the level where you would want to know deeper about what your child is going through? So what are the kind of signs that, what are the tips that you have?
Well, the first thing is to try and engage your child. So if it's the, if you have the kind of relationship with the child where they've always, come to you, they haven't really had any difficulty in sharing with you, then you can ask them. You can say, start the conversation and say, I've noticed that you've been behaving a bit differently. Would you like to talk to me about it? And if the
Okay.
child says no, it's important to respect that and we can't force it. And in fact, if we do force a child to open up, they might just withdraw further. So in
Correct.
that
Yeah.
case, you can say, okay, I respect that you would not like to share it with me right now. If you change your mind, you always know that I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
Another way in which we can engage a child is, and this works especially if it's a withdrawn child, a child who's always been reserved. And that's normal. Some people are just, more inclined towards being a bit more reserved.
Yeah.
Um, Hands-on play helps a lot with children like these,
Okay.
engaging
Okay.
the hands. So, play with clay, play with Play-Doh. That can help them a lot. And in the process of working with this material, you can open up a conversation and say, so what's been on your mind lately? What's new? Start there.
So kind of putting them in their own like comfort zone, where they're busy doing something, but also engaging them in conversation, right?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
one way, and if your concerns are severe, if you've noticed something severe in the child, then always just go in for a consultation to a professional.
Okay. And what age do you work with? Like, what is in terms of play therapy? What age group do you focus on?
I focus on ages 4 to 12.
Is there a reason why just 4 and not below 4? Just out of curiosity.
Well, even with 4, I think it's a bit early because so much of the work that I do is based on attachment. So it's
Uh,
really all about, the parent-child relationship. And
right.
so there's little that, so I work one-on-one with the child.
Okay.
I don't yet work with the parent in the room. So
All
as a
right.
therapist, if I were to work with a parent in the room, then I could also work with with infants who are even younger, because then I'm
Correct.
facilitating their relationship to develop. So in
Sure.
which case, I refer you to someone else.
Yeah. So, 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 so you advised us on a couple of strategies that we can try to engage with our child, and if not, then we see somebody about it. But this whole COVID coronavirus pandemic is, I mean, it's different. We really don't know what's happening with our children. They're all at home. They have no school. They're not meeting their friends. So I think there is like I think we've all mums been talking about it that there's we do feel that the kids are going through their own journey. So what does one do at this time? Like how is it affecting my child psychologically, and what can I do about it?
It probably is, um, affecting them as in the same way that it's affecting us. It's just a shock to
Yeah.
not be able to go outdoors, and it's a shock to feel like the outdoors is so unsafe. And there's just this thing out there that you can't see, you can't feel, you can't hear it. It's just so intangible. So I think for a child it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And but when we're talking to our children about this, it's good to just simplify the information. So don't overwhelm them with the facts and how scary it can be, and how we don't have control over the situation. Because what
Yeah.
children need and what they thrive from is control and boundaries. So
Correct. Yeah.
what we need to tell children is just the basic minimum, like there's this virus out there, and the ways in which we can get it is by touching things. So don't worry, I'll keep you safe. I'll make sure that we always wash our hands, and that
Okay.
at home it's okay for us to hug and kiss whoever is at home. But
Yeah.
besides that, we're going to stay away from that. And don't worry, as long as we wash our hands and stay at home, we're going to be safe. And I'm here to keep you safe.
Right. And what about like relationships? So, there are some people who are not visiting their grandparents, or their best friends. So how do you deal with like that kind of conversation with a child? Like, what do you tell your child about school or relationships with their close ones?
Again, you sort of have to build up from there, and say, it's not we don't know if it's safe for us to go and visit our friends and our grandparents, because we have to keep ourselves safe and also keep them safe,
Correct.
because we don't want to unknowingly exchange, unknowingly cause anyone to fall sick. And better safe than sorry. And say, I know you miss your friends, I know you miss your grandparents, so let's set up as many online play dates as we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me,
So
what would you like to do?
right, right, right. And I mean, I did read. So, can you give us a little bit of examples of how you use play to kind of engage with a child? Like, could you give us examples of how you do this?
Okay, so, well, a child typically walks into the room, and like I said, they do what they want and they say what they want.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's so important because the playground is the one space where a child sets the rules,
yeah.
versus wherever they go, the rules are always set. Everything is, done, and they are told what to do, what not to do. So it's so important and it's so healthy for them to come into a space where they are in control. So I give them that control, and I just say the only rules are that we keep each other, all the toys in the room safe.
Yeah.
Besides that, the child starts, playing with whatever they want to, and I mirror the child, I reflect the child. And when I do this, there's a lot of, what I'm saying is, I hear you, I see you, I'm also normalizing their feelings, because play, I know that play is not just scribbling a crayon, because even in the movement of a crayon, there's a lot that is being expressed, in the color, the stroke, the energy, the movement, the story that they're building. So I'm there to normalize it, I'm there to hold it, and I'm constantly, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but I'm constantly there. I'm
Yeah.
holding their process, and sometimes I jump in and I give them a little bit of insight. I can say, "Oh, I see that today you're feeling a little bit better than you were last week. I wonder what's caused that change."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's both um, a statement where I'm telling them that I see them, I
Yeah.
notice the difference, and I'm watching them consistently, and I'm really tuned in. And
Yeah.
also, I'm curious to know if they want to share what's changed in the last week. I'm telling them that
Correct.
I'm open if they want to share, and it's also an invite without pushing them. I'm not even asking them directly.
Absolutely. I mean, so how does a parent like so you have obviously experience and you've dealt with kids and you've obviously researched all this over the last many years. So how does a parent now understand? Is there any like books that we can read or like how do we understand more about how our children play and thereby giving us information about what's going on with them?
Um, so, if I understood you correctly, you want to know how to understand as a parent what the child's play means.
Yeah, yeah. What are the cues exactly? Or just a couple of
Okay,
examples even, like one example would be great.
okay. Um, well, there was this one time, I'll give you an example, and I invited a parent to play with the child in the sand tray. And this parent, the child started playing, and the parent started putting toys into the sand tray. And the parent started saying, okay, no, you put this here and you put that there, and this doesn't go
Yeah,
here and that doesn't go there. And the child was welcoming the parent into his play, even though the parent hadn't asked for permission. And
yeah,
the parent had just taken over the sand tray. I mean, it was no longer, or if you looked at that sand tray, it wasn't the child's, it was the parent's. So,
yeah, yeah,
I spoke to the parent and I said, I explained again that the playground is the child's and it's so important for them to have one space to express themselves freely. But when you're playing with a child, it's important to just ask them each and every single time, would you like me to play with you? And if they say
yeah,
no, you can say, okay, I'm just going to sit here and watch you play. And if
yeah,
you'd like to join in, you can ask me to, and I'll
yeah.
join in anytime. And when they
Okay.
do ask you to, to join in their play, it's good to say, okay, now what would you like me to do? So say,
Okay.
he gives you a car. You can say, okay, what do you want me to do with the car? Don't
Yeah,
just start moving the car up and down, because
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
actually know what the car means to the child. So what do you
yeah,
want this car to say? What do you want this car to do? Who is this car even? To us it's a
yeah,
car. we can say it's a car,
Yeah.
but to the child, they're using their imagination. So the car could be a
Absolutely.
monster, it could be something that,
Yeah.
scare them in their nightmares. So if
Yeah.
we're open and we don't attach meaning and labels to play, we give the child the freedom to really show us what's going on for them.
Exactly. So we're communicating in their world, like in their perspective
Yeah.
and in their zone versus our zone, which I think most we just like automatically kind of put our perspectives on our children, right? Which yeah, completely
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah. So we had a
We
question
felt
here is
ashamed to what is that color? What is this? What is that? Red is red, blue is blue. So we
yeah,
come from that very industrial education mindset.
sure. We have a question that says, when can we go beyond saying it's just a phase and actually know when we have to kind of seek help or therapy for our child?
Okay, I think one is if it gets severe, if the child
Yeah.
is being unsafe towards anyone or anything. Two is if it's been going on for maybe more than 3 months.
Yeah.
It's good to come in for a consultation before things really escalate.
Okay. So wait for about 3 months. Is that a good cue?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So there's a question here is for an 8 to 10-year-old, how do you engage a child of that age other than drawing, board games, and cards?
Well,
That's older.
there's
So we're
this
now moving to older children.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's this a lot of conversation, especially with the coronavirus pandemic, about engaging our children. I say don't engage them. Let them be bored. Especially a child who's 8 to 10 years old, let them be bored. Let them take care of their own needs. I mean, come on, if they can't keep themselves entertained, can we expect them to do the harder things that's about to come?
Yeah.
So if they're bored, say, okay, I can see that you're bored. What would you like to do? You know,
Yeah.
when it's a younger child, you can give them two options. You can say, okay, I can see that you're bored.
Yeah.
One, we could play a video game. Two, we could play a board game. And then if they can't decide, you say, okay, the third option is that I decide because I can see that it's difficult for you to choose, so you make the decision. But when it's an
Right.
older child, let them be bored because, when they're bored, we're letting them sit with their feelings. And eventually, that's where problem solving arises from, creativity arises from, imagination arises from. And we need those cognitive skills for their development. We want them to practice it on their own without being motivated by an exam or a textbook or a teacher. Just
Absolutely.
natural
Yeah.
tendency.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a follow-up question that says that because I think there's such dependency on screen time, where if, especially I think older kids who you give them an option, they're going to choose watching TV or a movie. So, and how do you see it shift with children in terms of the amount of screen time and the kind of effect that they have on their mental health?
Um, I wouldn't say that necessarily. I wouldn't say I've seen a shift, but we do know that research has shown us that fixed amount of time, fixed amount of digital or screen time is okay, and that if
Yeah,
it's used productively, if they're engaging with quality content, it can be good for them.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
also important for us to set the boundaries, and setting the boundaries is only one aspect, but also holding the boundaries and actually saying, okay, you have half an hour of digital time today. You can decide when you want to use it and how you want to use it, but it's only half an hour. And after that, I will take the phone away.
Yeah,
And if they, if you really feel like you have to express the consequences, you can say if you cross the amount of digital time you're allowed today, then you can't play tomorrow. And the next day, actually following up with that and saying you can't play tomorrow. The next day, just not allowing them to play, because if we lay down the boundaries and then we show them that we're not serious about it, they're going to
yeah,
continue to take advantage of that. And also,
absolutely.
that's just, then we're not teaching them how to respond to authority, we're not teaching them to actually follow the rules and discipline.
Yeah, and in a sense, kids like the kind of boundary and
Yeah,
I mean, they might reject it a lot because they would want to watch that extra 10 minutes or half 1 hour of TV. But I think in a sense, they kind of like working around schedules and
yeah,
boundaries.
yeah.
So we have a question again. How do you deal with oversensitivity to things because anxiety is misplaced or because the child can't understand their own confused and subliminally scared feelings?
Okay, okay. It is difficult for a child to understand and express their anxiety. Um, in such a situation, what you can do is sit down with them and ask them, okay, what are you feeling? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your body? Sometimes they'll say they have a sore tummy. Sometimes they say they feel nauseous. Sometimes they say they feel sick. They're having bad dreams. So get them to express it. Show curiosity. First thing
Okay,
is to show curiosity. And then
nice.
after that, normalize the feeling. Say, okay, yeah, I understand that. Just normalize it. Don't build it up. Don't dismiss it. Never dismiss it. And after we've normalized it, we can then explore it.
Yeah,
Okay, say, okay, so when do you feel this way, etc., etc. And then after that, an activity you can do is the worry worms activity, which is where
okay,
you draw worms and then you
okay,
cut them out with your child, and then
okay.
you say, okay, this is the worm for my bad nightmares, this is the worm for my sore tummy, and then leave them around the house, and then go looking for the worms, to catch these worry worms, catch the
Oh, nice.
worry, and
Yeah,
then put them in a box and seal them in the box so that the worry worms can't escape, because we are containing the feelings, and when we do
um,
this, we are exerting our own control, we are creating a sense of inner control, and we're
yeah,
also using our bodies,
yeah,
so we are embodying this feeling of controlling our emotions which are within us, which make us feel like we have no control.
yeah,
So once
yeah.
we
So
embody
we're taking the
those, we
reins in
can
our own
then have
hands.
control.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great tip to use. I mean, we would like to hear if you have one, maybe one more that you can share with us, something else that we could do with the kids. I think it'll be great for the people watching.
Okay, one more. I think I will come to me in a few minutes. Do you have
Sure.
another question there?
Yeah, sure. So my question was actually going to be a little deeper. So I know that, I mean, I've been reading your material online, and I think, it could be just dealing with, anxiety, frustration with small children, but also there are bigger issues that a child might be going through at home. And I think through your play, you've identified, I think there was an example about two or three turtles and how the child took two turtles and put them away. Could you give us this example? I think it'll be interesting for people to hear that, it's so powerful, the tools that you use and the kind of communication you have with the child and how the child shows these. So yeah, you could go ahead and share more.
Okay. So this was basically a girl of the age, I think she was around 6 years old, and she was working with the sand tray with a therapist, and she basically put 3 eggs in the sand. She buried 3 eggs in the sand. Oh no, I'm sorry. She placed 3 eggs in the sand and then she buried one of the eggs.
Yeah.
And this was basically because her mother had recently left her and her father. And so
Yeah.
she had come to explore that in therapy. So
Okay.
you can see how each of the eggs was representative of her family. And the one that she had buried was the one that she had lost. She was grieving the loss of her mother. And she had buried that egg.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more work around that. That was a very powerful moment, you're right.
Exactly. So I mean, so it could be, it could be with like a small, I'm not calling it small and big, but I'm saying there could be smaller issue, but there also could be really deep feelings that a child is going through. And, play therapy can obviously help them express their emotions better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of conversation about how play is a waste of time. It's not a nonsensical play, but play is
Yeah.
really a child. Play gives a child a chance to really process what they've noticed. So for us, we might go back home and journal in our diaries to understand what's happened and make sense of things. But a child doesn't have the vocabulary or maybe even the writing skills to really process it. So for them, they play it out, and it's so powerful when they play it out because they're using their bodies and their minds. So it's for children a very very deep process when they are playing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean that it's powerful. And I think us as parents who've seen our kids, pretend play and play with different tools in such different ways every day. whether it's a
Yeah.
drawing, whether it's blocks, or whatever it might be. So I think just them being able to express emotions through play itself is so powerful, and we need to let them do it, I think, on their own terms instead of going into their space. I think that's my biggest takeaway from
Absolutely.
our conversation. Yes, quickly wanted to get, I think the last question I had for you was any tips that, there you go, actually Vishwa's asked. So before I ask, let me, Vishwa's my partner. Do you have any centers in Chennai or can you recommend any? Is this something that can be done digitally over Zoom? So if you want to bring your child in to meet you.
Um, I'm in the process of setting up a space in Chennai.
Okay.
You can contact me for referrals for any other play therapist in Chennai. Um, it can be done over Zoom, but it's not the same thing, and I wouldn't say it's as fast. It can be still effective, but it's not the best option.
Okay.
I did remember one other tip for dealing with
Great.
anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you want, you can get, a bracelet or a ring or a stone. Or if you want, you can even, use, I think, there's a certain kind of clay that you can bake in the oven. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you can go out with your child, buy that clay, and also maybe ask them to pick three colors that
Okay.
that make them happy or feel calm. Um, Roll in the clay into the with the colors and make stones, a few
Okay.
stones or just a few circles. Put in a thumbprint or a fingerprint. Ask the child to put in their own thumbprint or
Yeah.
fingerprint into the clay.
Okay.
Bake it in the oven, and then
Okay.
when it comes out, say, okay, so which stone is this? This is the stone that I use when I want to feel special. This is the stone
Okay.
that I look at when I want to feel protected, or this stone helps me remind myself that I am safe, or that mom loves
Okay.
me, or that I can go
Yeah.
home and think, okay,
So they'll go and find these stones depending on what they're currently feeling, and they're using that stone to express themselves clearly. Yeah, it's
yeah.
very powerful.
If the child's too small, then you can just give them an object and say, this is very special and has very special powers. And whenever you're feeling scared or unsafe, you can just look at it and say, I am safe and
Mm.
I feel calm. And you can remember that I'm always with you.
Yeah. So I think I mean, basically, I think you're trying to say that, you give the child their own, like, you give them the power to, um,
We want to set them up for success and not for
exactly.
failure. So if a child is refusing to go to school, maybe because they're afraid of someone there, we don't want to say, okay, you sit at home and I'll take care of it. We want to say, okay, so what's happened? We want to express curiosity. We want to explore what's happened. We want to normalize their feelings and then set them up
Yeah.
to deal with it themselves. We might facilitate the process, we might be with them while they're standing up for themselves, but we want to teach them to stand up for themselves. Because
Yeah.
if we keep
Yeah.
jumping in, we're not negating their anxiety,
Yeah.
we're allowing the anxiety to continue.
Yeah. I think it's to find their own inner strength and not be like, we can't solve all their problems. We're going to allow them to figure it out themselves.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's very powerful. And I think that'll really set them, on a good course going forward as they grow up. But this has been really insightful. This is very different. I mean, this is something that, when we started talking, it was completely new for me. And, it was really great that we could have you here to share more about play therapy and the work that you do. So thank you so much, Anya, for coming on board.
Thanks for having me.
And we look forward to, having you on more in the future.
I'd love to, yeah.
Super.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.